to the Say So podcast. I'm Kaitlin.
And I'm Darbi. And this is Payton, Clayton on today's episode. Ooh, you guys got to say it. It's so fun.
Clayton.
She is joining us today because we love the work that God has been doing in her life. She just went on a walk to Emmaus, and she is doing a little bit of everything. I feel like you are, I've just been seeing you everywhere. And so we just thought we have got to ask, what is going on with Payton Clayton?
Yeah, that's right.
So tell us, what's been going on just recently with you, Payton?
Well, first, we did the marriage group in 2 church groups, or with Mary Alice, and then the walk, went on that, 2 kiddos, 3 jobs. It's just fun.
1 husband.
He's like another
so
kid.
far.
He's like the other kid, you know?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
The Lord's just been moving. He's been moving great in our lives. And it's been, I feel like just in the past, I've been with my husband almost 6 years now. And we will almost be married a year in July.
It's been really easy, right? Is that what you were saying?
No. We're good. Okay. That's what, literally, I just feel like our relationship just started. Even I think it's been 2 weeks since I've gone on the walk. I feel like kind of just started our whole marriage, a relationship. And last year was good for myself, like mentally, spiritually. Both of us I went one way, and I was doing so good. And then you have that person, you're like, I want him to be on fire as much as I am.
Yeah.
But he was people. He's like, how do I open up to complete strangers? And I'm like, I'll tell you my whole life, to anyone. And but there's a lot I just discovered, and he went on his walk, and he's a whole new person.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It's so good. So he came back, and he was on fire, and I'm like, I know what you did last weekend, So it's kind of been, then I look at it and I'm like, that's a blessing. How much he's changed. And I was like, okay, well, I want to be on fire as much as he is on fire, because I thought I was, but it wasn't. And so we both went one way. I was doing so good and he was doing so good, but there wasn't anything in the middle. Which on the walk, I discovered it was fearful of men for me. And one of them, you're not really supposed to say what you do, but I had a chance to share my full testimony, and it was fearful of men. I couldn't accept love from men because what have men has done to me in the past. And that's anywhere from sexual, mental, physical
abuse.
Yeah. And it's rough because I'm always the happiest person for the most part, and just very uplifting and love everyone, but I'm like, I love you, but don't touch me. Yeah. That's how I've always been. And now I'm like, my husband never knew that. My mom, I've never told anyone about some things. And I just got up in front of all these ladies and I was like, this is what's happened. And the amount of love that was there was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And
then you can share it in different ways, which the last day God told me I was going to speak. And I'm like, no, not me, And it kind of I didn't feel worthy of it because of my past, because I was an alcoholic. I smoked. I've done everything. And it's kind of crazy to see, because I am only 23 and I've had the craziest life. You can think of something, I've done it or I've been through it. And it's just crazy now to kind of show, I'm so young. People are like, you're just young. I'm like, I don't feel young because what I've been through. But the amount of power and what God's doing in our life is just, it's crazy. And just the enemy he's trying to attack for sure. But that's what I got told the whole walk is he's going to try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's unpack this. So you talked about, you've kind of known the Lord a while.
Yes.
Right. You've known of him.
Even when I was an alcoholic, I was still at church.
And I think so many people
Totally.
that's so
It's
many people's stories of knowing the Lord, but there's a difference between knowing of him and knowing him personally.
Yeah.
So you would say that you knew of him, you kind of knew him, but then you had this encounter.
Yeah.
Like a true encounter with him and with his tangible love, through people.
Yeah.
So do you think he became more real for you then, to where you could see the difference of knowing him and knowing of him?
Well, when I was a kid with my dad, he was in prison a lot of the time, and we were best friends before that, and church was my runaway. Mm-hmm. I was a kid serving kids.
So church was a safe place for you.
Yes, that was the only, my mom was a single mom, and she's still awesome, and she was my backbone. She was my best friend. I was her best friend. Mm-hmm. That's what we lived off of. I had to take care of brother and sister as much as I could help her, because she mentally, it's a lot.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so that was my safe place. And then the alcohol and stuff, it kind of took me away, because I hung out with the wrong people, but still, my best friend, she was an alcoholic with me, but we'd be drinking and still listening to worship music.
At 16, is that right? Is that the time frame? I know it wasn't just that, but
yeah, 16, 17, 18. I got pregnant 3 weeks out of high school, which that was alcohol.
Yeah.
And actually didn't know who the dad was because of alcohol. And I'm just praying the whole time, and it was really after my marriage. I think God really, when it came to what you're saying of when did you finally go all in, basically, was when my marriage was failing. Mm-hmm. Because,
I get that, yeah.
We didn't have a relationship at first, and, Matt was my first boyfriend actually at 14.
Mm.
Wow.
That's cool.
So, it's crazy because it was not one of those I love you, let's be in a relationship. No, he took full responsibility as a college student taking on my child. Mm-hmm. And so it was okay, I love him, but I've never felt a love like I do now, knowing the Lord completely, reading the Bible, mm-hmm. going to women's events, going to church, and even starting youth. From a child, someone asked me today, they were when did you know you were going to speak on it? Because I went to Zena this morning, and she was have you ever gotten told that before? And I was yeah. When I was in church as a kid, many people, God told me, you're going to speak. And I'm yeah? No. But now it's making sense, because I do, just at the walk, I was I don't even know why I'm here. Mm. And then it got to where I'm I help so many other people just by my testimony, because I'm not ashamed of my past, because look at me now versus then.
Yeah, and what God did.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest thing, just like Matthew, and now for the kids, because...
So in that moment when you're at the walk and you're realizing your fear of men that you've had, what do you think caused you to recognize that in that moment, and how did you process that when you shared it?
I think the biggest thing with that was it's so easy to point the finger at someone mm-hmm. else, and that's what I always did with Matthew. And kind of going on when he got home, because he went on the last one, it was so easy to point out the small things. I'm but he's not even doing anything wrong. Why am I still not all mentally there? And it was more of, someone asked me, his name was Rick, he was on the walk, and I prayed with him for hours, and his testimony, and I'm he would, alcohol and stuff with his wife, and I'm I related so much to him. We just bonded, mm-hmm. Connected, and I was he is genuine, and he's kept asking me, he was are you okay with the past? Have you really forgiven your dad? I'm yeah. Mm-hmm. I was fully, my dad's awesome now. He's sober, he's great,
Yeah.
And he was well, what is it? And I'm I don't know. And so we had free time because, it's chaos. I mean, it's mentally you're so exhausted. And I finally just got on my knees and was like, what is it? He was like, it's men. And I've never heard from the Lord so much as that place. It's just...
Well, it's amazing when you set apart time to hear from the Lord how much He'll truly speak, but how much we don't actually make that time. Yeah.
That's what I was saying the other day I was like, I've never heard so much when your ears are completely clear.
Yeah.
And you're truly listening because there's so many things He likes to say. And, and I always say, He has a personality. He does. But fear of men, that was the biggest thing, and He, more of the past, there's like I said, there's a lot of things that I didn't even know about, and I had to come home and tell my husband.
Yeah.
And then on my, worse, it was my family, and I had to tell my mom.
Wow.
And so my mom was devastated, and I'm like, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can be devastated and she, and I pray for her often, but she's like, I failed. And I'm like, no, you didn't, because look who you made today.
Yeah.
By you being my backbone and you giving me life in general, and which she's still, that's a lot. But I literally had to come home and tell my husband, and he's like, it makes sense. And so it's a whole different, it's so good.
I think sometimes we don't realize we have victimized ourselves. And if you see yourself as a victim, even unintentionally, then you're always looking for a villain.
Yeah.
And so you start making your spouse or your boss or whoever those people are in your life that really grind against you, you start making them worse than they really are, or you put up the walls, kind of what you're talking about, and you don't even realize it.
No, I had no idea, and that's what's crazy to me is because I'm like, we've been together 6 years and I've known him since 14. And I'm like, I literally cried on the way home because I'm like, thank you.
So then tell me, how did you get to this point? Because you've had all this crazy stuff happening, okay? Your marriage is you're not even sure you want the marriage, okay? But then how are you hanging on to get to, okay, so the walk was a retreat. You both went on it on different weekends. But do you feel like that was your Hail Mary, let's go on this walk? Or was there, what would you encourage someone in, if you're in that spot?
There's a lot. Probably just pray. I mean, that's been my thing since I was little, is just prayer. And that, I mean, it's so strong, and you don't realize how strong it is. And I mean, even it's been months, since we've been here. I never thought Matt would go to a marriage group or nothing like the walk. And sometimes you just have to hear from other people. Yeah. And it's Tina.
We love Tina.
We do love Tina. And just like her, she actually said something about men on the way there. And I guess that my heart kind of stuck with that. And just listen. That's my biggest thing, is listening and taking the time to just shut your mouth and listen. Sometimes you're in the moment, but you don't sit there and chill out. And I think the past couple months has been okay, sit there, shut your mouth, listen.
To the people around you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, anyone, because people speak to you and now it's you watch what you say, because you don't realize how much one word can change a whole sentence.
That's good.
Yeah. You don't realize it at all until you actually do it. So I'm coming home was hard, because you do have the real world, and
you have to deal with what you
and it's
now come to terms with is your reality.
So it was a lot in general, but the amount of love, in my husband's eyes, it makes me just want to cry, because I'm I've been a different person than I should have been for so long, and I'm all I could say was thank you for loving me. When I guess I just didn't give it fully back, and he's God's got us, but now it's just different, because you speak through to your kids, and you don't realize how much, and I'm Coulter's 2, a 2 and a 5-year-old, they don't listen. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They listen to everything.
Yeah.
But
I love that. You're so intentional now to know that your words matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love Payton, just listening to you. You're 23.
yeah.
Okay. You have said, you've just lived so much, made a lot of choices, some, that you now are reconciling with, right?
Yeah.
As we all do.
Yeah.
So, and, you also said that now you're at a place where you're not ashamed and you don't have shame. You're willing to speak about it.
Yeah.
So what do you say to the woman or the man who's like, I don't feel like I have healing from the things that I've done or the things that have been done to me, and I could never speak out loud about that. Like, how do you get from that place of just shame and just almost, maybe not secrecy, but just nobody could ever know that, to like, well, let me tell you about it.
Yeah. Surrendering is that's the best thing. Well, really, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
And just like I said, prayer and community and your people.
Yeah.
Like I said, your people they speak to you, and just like my best friend Avery and my best friend Sam, they're the people that speak so highly, and they tell you when you're wrong and tell you when you're right. And having a person, even if you don't have a person, find a person that is in the right place. Like,
Yeah.
because it's hard. I mean, you go into, like, I'm not from Graham, and you go in, people are curious about you. People are curious about your good. People are curious about your bad, and they thrive off your bad, you know?
Right. You're totally right.
They do. And it's like now, someone says, well, I remember the old you, and I'm like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But look where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people, having a person and your friends
Yeah.
speaking to them and them speaking to you is a big thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
surrendering.
Yeah, that is it. So you had your path, Matthew was on his path, and you feel like now God's really the third chord in that, right? And so you can tell a big difference now.
Huge difference. And like since we had Briley so young, I was 18. We never got a relationship. We don't have, his dad and them are here, but it's like you don't want to interrupt their time, but you do. So we never did anything together. Well, we just discovered youth was together. So we just started youth.
So you're serving together.
Yes.
And you were in a group together. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that, and then he's serving on Sundays. And I'm like, it's so crazy because he would never do that.
Yeah.
Like, he would never do a marriage group. I was shocked he was there, but he's like, he enjoyed it. He loved the people. And he's like, just one of his biggest things that he came home with was you didn't have to drink to have fun. You didn't have to say cuss words to have fun.
Yeah.
And it's just like the groups. I think that's what he liked the most is true people and seeing that people aren't perfect, because sometimes it's like that. And you have one church or something, it could do a lot.
Yeah.
But I think for him it was definitely just good people and youth. It's fun. It's fun.
I think it is helpful. Mike and I's story is similar to y'all's because we had Noah when we were 21, and so we've never had a time of life where we didn't have a kid.
Yeah.
So we really can't fathom time alone. What would we even do if it was just he and I? We've never known that. So that's a weird perspective when I'm with couples that they don't have kids or they had years together without them. But I know for us serving together, we served in kids ministry for a good year together, and I remember thinking it gave us such a purpose together where you start to see each other's strengths being used for God's glory, and you're doing it together, because so often what you see as their strength is also really annoying to you when it's individual. But then when you see it and they're using those gifts for the Lord, and it's like, okay, I see that. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest things when Matt came home from his walk. I'm like, with him worshiping, I've never felt any kind of love like that, and I was like, oh, that's so beautiful, and I'm not a crier. And I was like, tears.
Yeah.
But it's good. Like, I mean, even on youth, you know, there's, that's an example.
Yeah.
Well, you see their heart after God's.
Yeah.
And I do think that endears you to your spouse when that happens.
In a way that,
you might not have ever before.
Yeah. And walking, like, even, it's the little things now, like, you notice, like, differently.
Yeah.
And walking in the morning with coffee, and he's just reading the Bible. I'm like, yes, you are. So that, you know, even in silence, you're still there, you know, like in him doing something good, and you're like, and him, the whole spiritual leader, for a long time, it wasn't like that. But now I'm like, you got this, dude, you know, and it's just crazy because I never thought that we would be where we are. And it's like how you, like, serving, and it's just, I looked at it, I was like, my kid's going to be out of the house, but I'm 40, you know, which I've always told Matt, I was like, I want to do every mission trip there is.
Oh, that's cool.
And at the walk, I got asked to go to Honduras, and I'm like, well, yeah, you know, and then Israel trip came up, and I'm like, I've never been on a plane, and we're going to 2 different places. I got to get a passport. But
I love it.
Do it.
I'm excited. But
Cool.
It's good. It's real good.
Well, I feel like your just love for the Lord is so contagious, and I just have loved hearing. It's like you have new eyes for your husband, and he has new eyes for you, and that's so what the Lord does. Like, I think we can build our lives up to be this thing that it's all about us and what we want and what we expect it to be. But when you strip it down to like it's about the Lord, it's like, holy moly, I didn't even know it could be this good. You know, and I just. For both of us, we're so excited for what's to come. Yeah. Like, it is just the beginning, you know?
That's how I'm not a lovey-dovey person either. And I wrote him a letter, and I was like, I knew I was going to the gym. So I was like, I'm going to write a letter and put it in his nightstand. And that's exactly what I told him. I was like, this is just the start of a whole new relationship.
Yeah.
But it does a lot when you invite the Lord in.
It does a lot when you invite the Lord in. That is a great word.
It is.
And Payton, I love that, like, it's not complicated, but it is hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it is hard sometimes to walk it out, but I love listening to your story that, like, man, there was abuse, there was alcohol, there were so many things that could have kept you from the Lord and seeking his presence, but you have continued to do that, and he's met you every time, and now he's restoring so much and actually giving you the desires of your heart because you chose to surrender. So I think that gives hope to so many people that, like, whatever you're looking for, it's on the other side of your surrender.
That's good. That's right. It's so true.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the episode today. We love.
It's good.
Yes,
I was
Payton Clayton.
Yes.
Payton Clayton.
Thanks for saying so.